Hey guys, hope you guys are doing well. Just wanted to preface this episode of the podcast with a couple things. First is there were some technical difficulties on my end, so the audio quality is not amazing, and the video format, if you're watching on YouTube, uh, changes halfway through just because my camera decided to die and I had to do some monkey magic. Um, Another thing is we touch on a topic about equality within a community, and we are two guys talking about equality, which you can guess is not gonna look as great. What we wanted to try and communicate was we want to encourage open dialogue between everyone involved um, with these kinds of issues. So I hope that comes across. Again, we want open dialogue, so if you got criticisms, critiques, comment or talk to me privately if you'd like, and happy to talk things through and probably learn some stuff. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and yeah.
G'day, lovely people. Hope you're all doing all right in these weird times. Welcome back to another episode of Who You Are. It's a show where we basically get to know who people are in the music industry. Pretty simple stuff. Today we're joined by this guy right here, Callum Kennedy. For those in the chiptune community, might know him as Tuberz Mcgee. What's cracking, my dude?
Yeah, not much. Finished a work day, had a salmon salad, and drinking water. Stay hydrated.
Oh dear. Yeah, no, you've had a rough day. Damn, man. It's
Should be right. Should be right.
she'll be right. We'll get
Yeah.
energy going. We'll pull something out of our ass. We'll be good.
Make it till we make it. Should be right.
No, that's the go. That's so. So I guess the best way to start getting to know who you are is who are you? Introduce yourself. I've told people your name, but who are you? Where might people have seen you around?
So my name is Callum. You've also introduced me as Tuberz Mcgee. So I'm a composer, educator, just general musician, working in Brisbane, Australia. So, yeah, what do I do? I write music of various forms, with a massive, I guess, influence from video game music and utilizing video game music forms in artistic musics, whether that be Western classical music, or which is what I studied at university, or I guess pop rock, which is a new affinity that I'm really enjoying. But I also lecture and teach at institutions, as well as working in my role as the coordinator of education with the Queensland Symphony Orchestra.
You're a busy boy.
I am.
So how did you get involved in all these things? Like when did you realize music was where you're going?
Okay, there's two different answers to that. The
Okay.
first answer, so how did I get involved with all these things, is I don't know how to say no. And sometimes that's a really good thing because I just find myself in situations I wouldn't normally find myself in. And sometimes it's a bad thing because it's like 2 a.m. and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is due. But it's fine. We're working it out. We'll fix it in post. But yeah, no, so I grew up in a small village in New Zealand called Havelock North. Shout out to all the wine mums out there. It's literally just like a vineyard town. And so I grew up there playing guitar very amateurly. And I remember I had 1 year of classical guitar like lessons because I brought an arrangement of a piece of music from Final Fantasy VIII, Man with the Machine Gun. I'd like downloaded the piano sheet music off the internet and was like, I'm gonna like learn this on guitar, and like arduously went through like the bass clef going G A B C. Like I couldn't read music at that point, so like I literally went through and plotted every single note in that thing on the guitar. And
Wow.
I took it to my guitar teacher because I was having school lessons at the time. And I played it for him. I was like, check this out. And he goes, I'm calling your mom right now. And I was like, what have I done? And he goes, no, you need lessons, like classical guitar lessons. So I started having classical guitar lessons, and he pushed me really, really hard. And I'm really glad because I really fell in love with classical music. And I'd for a long time been in love with like video game music and more popular musics. But it kind of cemented at about age 15 that I was like, I want to do music composition. This is what I want to do as like a job. And I knew, even living in like this really backwater part of New Zealand, that I want to go to Queensland. I'm going to go study at the con in Queensland. And I was really, really lucky that my parents ended up moving with us for my grade 12 so that I could come across to Queensland and eventually go to the con. So yeah, I got really, really lucky, and I rolled the nat 20 on that one.
Damn.
So here we are.
Hey, it's always nat 20s in life. It's fun when that happens.
Nat 20s or nat 1s, and just roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what was it like kind of coming from New Zealand actually? Getting, like, it seems like it's what you wanted to do, but was there any kind of shock to that, coming from the best place in the world to second best place in the world?
Okay. That massive culture shock, obviously. Like where I grew up, even though I was like an amateur musician, it was kind of like big fish and small bowl. Like even when I came across and I was in grade 12, I was like one of the best musicians in the grade. And it kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it gives you an ego, but it gives you a perception that like, man, I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
And then when I got to university, I realized, oh my God, like I was the smallest fish in this big bowl. And it kind of was like another culture shock, so to speak. So not just like in terms of the landscape of what I guess tertiary institution it is, but just in the regard that I used to think I was like good at this, and I used to put in the nominal amount of effort because I was cruising.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, oh my God, everyone here is better than me. How do I catch up? And even more than that, how do I get ahead? Because I'm a hyper competitive. Like I like to gamify anything I can to like win. And so I just put in like lots of hours, so many hours, just so that I could get ahead and learn as much as I could in the small amount of time that I had at university. And I did really, really well. And I learned a lot. And I feel like I got the most out of it. And also I was kind of like, I'm paying the government a lot of money. I'm going to get my money's worth out of this.
No, that's fair. Definitely.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Developing that work ethic kind of early on is probably a good way to go about it.
Yeah. Because I felt like a lot of people, especially in first year of university, like it was a real turning point for people. So some people just kind of cruised because they sort of knew they were already doing well enough to pass. They were at this perceived pass rate. But then there were people who, like me, were the big fish of their small bowl at their school. And then they came here and they realized, oh man, like I'm nowhere in comparison to these guys. And they worked really, really, really hard.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't one of those people. You were. No, but that's...
You found your niche. That's important.
Yeah, we're still getting there. We're growing. We're developing a work ethic as we go. But no, shit. So it's good that you've kind of come through uni. You came out of uni a couple of years ago, yeah?
Yes. So I graduated my honors degree in music in 2016. Then I went and did a graduate diploma of education. which I graduated in 2017. And I haven't been back to uni since, but like I'm getting the itch. I'm getting
Getting
the
the
itch.
itch.
I kind of want to do a master's.
Masters in what?
Uh, I want to do a master's looking at contemporary classical electric guitar, which is another personal love of mine. Mainly because no one knows what it means, and it means I can get away with also not knowing what it means. But it's a type of contemporary classical electric guitar is something I'm quite interested in the communicative aspects of this instrument that is almost exclusively reserved for popular musics like jazz and rock and pop and all those kinds of things. Like it's not really used in the Western classical sphere as much as any other instrument. So it's something that I'm really interested in, and not even like the tokenistic like Yngwie Malmsteen like concerto for guitar and orchestra, like stuff that's like actually using the instrument in new innovative ways. Like even players in popular music spheres, like people like obviously Tosin Abasi, or I'm just forgetting all the names now. People like what's his name from Polyphia?
Oh yeah.
What's his name? I know his Instagram handle.
I've been listening to him all day, but yeah, him.
Yeah, they're absolute wizards, and they're kind of redefining and even the guitarist of Little Ty B, which is like an indie group, like they're just taking the guitar and reinventing how it plays a role in contemporary music, and I find that really fascinating.
No, that's awesome. So how do you come from, I guess, this very academic approach to music and a interest in electric guitar and stuff? How do you get chiptune? What is chiptune? That's a good start. Like, not a lot of people know what chiptune is, so tell us about that, and then tell us why you got into it.
Okay, so the textbook definition of chiptune is music that uses or emulates defunct video game hardware. So that can either be by actually using like a Nintendo Game Boy and hacking it in a way to use the sound hardware to produce new music, or it can be using a digital audio workstation and using synthesis that sounds like a video game to create music. Some people call that fake bit. I just think it's just a different color of chiptune. And so chiptune has actually been around for a really, really, really long time, obviously because chiptune is video game music in a way. So the earliest video game soundtracks, so things like Gunfight, Pong, your Mario Brothers, Zelda, whatever, those are chiptune. They're using the sound chips to create music. Or I guess I should just say, just to create sound events. That's the most diplomatic way to put it.
Sorry, I'm a be an absolute dick, and I'll get you to retract that, but my camera is freaking out, and as you can see, I'm frozen like a motherfucker. Sorry about this. Sorry, cut out. Technical difficulties. Big old bitch. So you were saying, explaining what chiptune is. It's the use of old video game hardware and adapting it to that. Please continue.
Yeah, so chiptune music is either writing for or emulating video game hardware to create new music. So that could be using a Nintendo Game Boy and writing music for its sound hardware, or loading up the sounds of like a Sega Mega Drive indiscriminately without any care for hardware limitations in a digital audio workstation. That they're both chiptune. And like I've even seen people who like reprogram calculators to make music. Like that's chiptune. In fact, I had it kind of explained to me really, really well by a guy in Melbourne called Citrix, who's like one of our best national exports for chiptune. He goes, at this point, it's it's easier to just say what isn't chiptune than what is chiptune, because what is chiptune is so massive, and it's kind of like an opt-in or opt-out process. Like you personally identify with chiptune or not. So
Okay.
I find that kind of interesting.
So how do you opt in?
Yeah, you opt in by enjoying it and just learning how to tinker with things, learning how to break things, learning how to make things with broken things, and it's really fun. I kind of fell into it. I feel it's two camps that fall into chiptune music. The first one is people who really love to push the envelope and make things do things they're not supposed to do. And I operate in that camp to some degree. And the other one is people who really love Super Mario.
Yeah.
like people who grew up on games and really loved not just like game music, but the sound of game music. And so I also, fulfill that portion as well. So what's the best way to put it? So I when I was in high school, I was playing a lot of retro games at the time. Like I almost exclusively played Nintendo Entertainment System rather than any other console. Like I wasn't playing PlayStation 2 as much. I wasn't playing much PlayStation 3. I didn't have an Xbox. I didn't really PC game. I played a lot of Nintendo Entertainment System. So I was playing through like Mega Man 2, playing through like Castlevania, Ninja Gaiden, like all of these games, like Final Fantasy, all these games on the NES that were really critical to the development of, I guess, the video game music canon.
Yep.
Things that really established a big love for the music for me. And it wasn't just like, oh, these notes that these composers use. It was the sound of the hardware. It was this kind of there's a really great quote from who was it? It was Yoko Shimomura. So Yoko Shimomura, who is a composer who wrote music for Street Fighter 2, for Kingdom Hearts, I think she did Xenogears. Like she did a lot of games. Maybe not Xenogears. I think that was Yasunori. Anyway, but she wrote music for a lot of different like Japanese games, and she said that the sound, it's kind of similar to how the sound of a Stradivarius violin cannot be approximated by any other violin. Like you can't. It's got such a sound to it that you cannot emulate with another instrument. However, by that same token, an arcade cabinet or a Game Boy or some other sound chip has a cheapness to it that not even a Stradivarius violin can approximate.
Okay.
So it was this really interesting concept of this is in itself a priceless timbre that you can use to write with. So I fell in love with writing music for initially Nintendo Entertainment System because that was my frame of reference. That was the music I loved. Because I loved the sound of video game music. I loved the timbres related to it. And B, I loved the idea of breaking shit and making stuff do stuff that it wasn't supposed to do. I loved that. The idea of going, okay, like I listened to like Bubble Bobble or whatever, like that soundtrack, and I'm like, yeah, this is a jam, but it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
And there are some complicated soundtracks. Don't get me wrong. Like listen to Gimmick, listen to Lagrange Point, like listen to some of that really crazy stuff. Like even Castlevania 3, there's some crazy stuff going on there, but none of it is even close to what we can do nowadays with the knowledge we have of, and this is the next point, the tracker format. So this was developed in the late 80s, I think it was 1987, by a guy called Karsten Obarski. So he wrote this program for the Commodore Amiga. Or was it the Commodore 64? It was either the Commodore 64 or Commodore Amiga, I can't remember right now. Which were basically old computers that you would run games and different programs off floppy disks. And he wrote this software called the Ultimate Sound Tracker, and it was to write music for the Commodore. And so a lot of people started going, oh, wow, this is actually a great way to make this easier and more accessible to write music for these formats. And so people started developing trackers for all the other systems that were around. And nowadays, most systems will have a form of tracker associated with them that you can write music for them within, whether it's like Fami Tracker, Fast Tracker, Milky Tracker, Deflamask, LSDJ. Like there's so many different ways of writing music for your favorite video game consoles. And they all have different methodologies and workflows, even though they come from the same iteration of a tracker. So I fell in love with writing this because it was like halfway between Western music notation and code, because it's in hexadecimal. And one of my friends affectionately called it spreadsheet music, because that's what it looks like. It looks like you're writing music in Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, because you've done some stuff with Family Tracker as well. Hey,
I've tried.
and it's a completely different workflow, and it's kind of really, something about it, just some parts of it clicked with me immediately, and some parts of it I really struggled with. And so I just really had to go against that grain to like teach myself how to use it. And I really fell in love with it through using it. And then in 2016, I wrote my honors thesis on the topic of writing new music for the Nintendo Entertainment System using tools that are available to us.
Tying the academic take into the new stuff. That's awesome.
It was just a thing. I was like, honors is kind of a really selfish project. I was like, I get to study what I like for a year and get really good at something I really like for a year. Sign me up. So I just, spent a year getting really good at this thing. And am I a master? No. There are people who are infinitely better than me at this sort of a thing. But if I'm happy for anything, it's that I contributed to the literature that is in this sphere, and I helped bring it to at least one person, potentially.
Awesome. No, that's good. It's definitely a very isolated community, but when you get into it, it's like an awesome community, and it's awesome music, very creative. A lot of some shit coming out of the chiptune scene that you don't expect, like bubble pop prog stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing is that chiptune isn't a genre. Chiptune is like it's a medium. I wouldn't even call it an instrument. Like because it's chiptune. It's kind of like an instrument family, the same way that you would say strings or woodwinds or whatever. So it's because each console is an instrument. A Nintendo Game Boy is an instrument. A Sega Genesis is an instrument. A Wonder Swan, if you really want to write for that, is an instrument. I don't know if anyone writes for Wonder Swan. Maybe I should.
Maybe.
But it's that's an instrument, and it all falls under the instrument family banner of chip music or chiptune. And so you can write any genre you want with a guitar. Like guitar is just an instrument that allows you to write music. But you can write any music with a guitar. Same thing with a clarinet, same thing with a bassoon, like same thing with a French horn. You can write any type of music with any kind of instrument. This is just your instrument, and you can create any type of music with it. And because of that, there's people who are making EDM with this. There are people who are making thrash metal with this. There are people who are making prog rock with this. There's people who are writing, like trap, like rap and stuff like that with this. There's people doing jazz. There's someone in Japan who got up on an open mic like a year or two ago, and everyone tweeted about them because they were doing like a Game Boy and a banjo. And that's the coolest thing ever. There are no rules. It's just what can you get away with? And that's something that I really fell in love with, I guess.
No, that's awesome. And it's also like that seems like there's a big community around it that nurtures that kind of creativity. What is that community like? Like, there's also been a lot of stuff happening in the chiptune community recently, which I kind of wanted to touch on. tell us a bit about the community, and then maybe we can talk about said things.
So the good thing about this community, because it's international and it's a sort of it's a medium of music. I want to say a movement of music that exists primarily on the internet. A lot of the reasons why it has flourished the way it has is because of physical hubs. Like we can talk about the New York scene, we can talk about the Melbourne scene, we can talk about the European scene, we can talk about the Finnish scene. Like we can talk about all these different scenes that had physical geographic hubs that helped develop it. But the power of the internet is kind of what made it international and allowed us to all speak to each other. And one of the best parts of the scene is there's no gatekeeping. Like people are happy to share secrets. That like no one's gonna go, this is my secret source. No one's gonna write this like me. It's like there might be one or two of those, but people very quickly go, I'm a reverse engineer that and tell everybody. So there's kind of no secrets on how to do stuff. And that's the coolest thing. So you don't feel like the odds are stacked against you, or like I guess sometimes you might feel like I've felt in my past that this is a stepping stone everyone has to go through. Everyone has to feel like they are not succeeding all the time. Like there has to be some kind of shortcoming to prompt you to grow. If there's never that in the chip music scene, it always feels like the tools are in front of you. Every bit of information is in front of you. The only thing that is stopping you from achieving, knowing it and growing with it is your ability to ingest what is given to you and your drive to learn it. So there's no barrier for entry. It's just get in. Actually, there's one barrier for entry, and it's that people are starting to charge more money for Game Boys, and it's really upsetting.
Yeah. No,
you go to a garage sale, you can't just get a Game Boy for $20 anymore. Sucks.
Oh yeah, no, people I think it's the nostalgia way. It's the same thing that happened to vinyl and tape. Yeah.
Same thing that's happening to Charizard cards in Pokemon. Like people are now charging so much money for them. I'm like, you don't know. Like I love the Pokemon trading card game, but that's cardboard, bro. Like that's not $50,000. Like anyway.
I saw an Economics Explained video where he talked about Pokemon cards, but no, it's good to have this community, and especially have a community that's so open and wants to kind of share the secrets, because there are some musical communities out there that are almost intimidating to get into because of that gatekeeping. So, and I feel like a lot of having that kind of open community, from my experiences with the chiptune scene, brings in a lot of people who wouldn't usually want to get into that stuff. It does seem like a bit more, to be reductive, an introverted scene almost too.
There's definitely a big part of that. I don't want to say all of them are, because there's all kinds of walks of life in the chip music scene. There's people who are very proud of, like, say, nerd, geek, gamer culture, and there's people who completely divorce from that culture. There's people who have never done music in their lives, who go, this is interesting, this is tangentially related to my interests. Like, I liked Mega Man 3, I can probably write music too. And that's so cool that we are allowing them that opportunity to experience music writing without having to have some kind of rigorous academic upbringing or some kind of like privilege of being born into a family where you can have piano lessons or something like that. Like, it's really cool that there's these people who have no musical background creating music.
Yeah.
And it's entirely because they feel comfortable doing it. And like any other scene, there are all kinds of walks of life doing this. Well, exactly the same as I said before. Like, it's not a genre. So there's people who listen to Slayer. There's people who listen to bluegrass music. There's people who listen to Porter Robinson. He's pretty much chiptune at this point. Like, you know, it's there's everyone in the scene, and that's one of the things that makes it so beautiful is that it is so widely diverse.
Yeah. No, that's
And
good.
and it's a big part of the scene as well that the scene, for the majority of the scene, really pushes for inclusivity of minorities, which is a really big thing. And there's a lot of discussions with that going on right now in the scene, as you were kind of alluding to earlier. Like, there's a lot of that going on, like as there is in every facet of culture and of life, and it isn't one in a day. You don't make these things better overnight. They take a long time to change people's minds. That, you know, maybe you should book female artists, or maybe you should be inclusive towards trans artists, so on and so forth. I think it's really, really important that we do this sort of a thing. But yeah, the scene's got a few growing pains at the moment. But I guess it's because it's quite a youthful scene.
Yeah. It's, yeah, as you've kind of also alluded to, me alluding to, there has been some drama. I can't comment on it enough because I haven't been within the scene enough. I just know there's been a lot of concerns raised, particularly from my cursory glance, particularly from a female, non-binary, trans demographic, about inclusivity and a lot of inappropriate stuff. I guess
it's important that we are having that dialogue.
Yeah.
But it's also important to make sure that it's a dialogue, not just a monologue from either side. It's important that it is a dialogue.
Yeah. It does seem like it's continuing to be discussed and people are getting around, I guess, to being more inclusive. This is a tricky topic. I guess
it's a massive.
As two blokes, we can't. It's a bit hard to comment on.
It is somewhat tokenistic for us to talk about this sort of a thing, and so I would, as much as I really appreciate bringing this topic to the foreground, I think this is a topic that is best discussed with a wide palette of individuals on panel, so to speak, to talk about this sort of a thing, because we, as you said, we're both male, we're both white, we're both very heteronormative, we're both pretty damn privileged. Like, there's not very much minority about us, so it's really important that we involve as many differing minorities into this discussion and into this narrative. We don't conduct this narrative. It's really important.
Absolutely. I think I guess the main thing about bringing to light is encourage people to have that kind of conversations with everyone and kind of form those kind of understandings. But it's good.
And something that I think is really, really important is that some people might be, misogynistic, or might be prejudiced against minority groups, and that's obviously, that is not a good thing. But in order to create a better scene, you don't shun those people away. You hold them to a higher regard. They have the right to say those things, and you have the right to tell them that they're stupid for saying those things. Because you have, if you are wanting to support people, you hold them to a higher regard. Don't cast people away because they do the wrong thing. Bring them up to your level. And I know that's much easier said than done, And for some people, yeah, they're a lost case. But I do see, and I really don't want to talk too much about this because this is another massive can of worms, but obviously cancel culture is a really big thing. And it's really important that we remain vigilant to allow people to grow and allow people to become better versions of themselves and understand the modern world that we live in.
Yeah.
Like it sounds cliche. It's not the 1960s anymore. It's not that it was okay then, but it's not the 1960s. There is no excuse.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach to take, I guess, with everything that's going on these days. Yeah, I appreciate you being open as we can on this topic. We'll we'll see how it's taken in by other people, but
Yeah, feel free to call me out. I don't mind. Again, it's my chance to learn as well.
exactly, that's good. No, it's good that also in the community like that, these things are coming up, and there's been the cancel culture, but it also seems like there's a lot of people from every walk of life who want to sit down and talk about it and help people understand the issues with certain actions. So it's good that this is a community that allows that.
In Australia, I can't talk a lot for other geocentric locations, but in Australia, we have a massive non-binary contingent of the chip music scene, and it's really funny. They are some of the most accepting people for people who are in a lot of circles shunned or seen, not equally. They're the most accepting people that I've met.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
No, I'm gonna make a hard swing just because I'm very bad at segues, but good conversation. Everyone keep the dialogue open who's listening. Welcome new listeners, if you're listening, I guess. But so I guess I want to swing into something, your new album,
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much. Yeah. Have a mad chat about that. I guess why now have you chosen to release it is the big old question.
Sorry, when have I?
No, why have you
Why
chosen to
have I?
release it now?
Because I had a lot of anxiety around releasing music for a couple of months, like actually closer to a year. It was about a year, and it was to do with the subject matter that we were discussing before. But that I don't think that's an important part of the narrative. All that matters is I have this album that was completed about a year ago. It was about 10 months ago, I want to say.
We finished it December.
December. Yeah, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So like 10, 11 months ago. And yeah, and I guess the masters just sat on my hard drive for this whole time because I had a lot of anxiety around actually releasing them. And that's a really real thing. I guess a fear of failure can sometimes really hold you back and stop you from putting out the art that you want to put out into the world. So if there's anyone out there who is experiencing that kind of anxiety, I know it sounds cheap because words are cheap, but trust me, just put it out there. If you fail, what is the worst thing that comes of it? What is the worst thing that comes of it? And I sort of got to that point where I remember because I just slowly drip fed songs to one of my friends. I just played them songs indiscriminately over multiple months, and every single time that I played them a song, they would say, "Oh, this is really good. Like, you should release this." And after you hear that enough times, you start realizing, okay, it's not just me who likes these songs. So I decided to set myself a hard date, so 11th of November, and release it. So I didn't have anything else there. I had the music. I had the wave files. And I was like, okay, let's just light that fire under my ass and make this happen. Like force my hand, make this happen. And so I literally have the album art open on my other monitor being edited right now. I walked into this, like, I set the date and was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for this, but I'm really proud of how it's turned out. I think it's very me. I feel like I have a vision going forward for what this album is going to be. And that's exciting again. It's exciting to be excited about your own music again. So I'm really looking forward to dropping it.
No, definitely. It's also music coming out in these times is always good, and I'm f***ing looking forward to the album because, to be honest, I've been waiting for it for a hot minute.
Yeah, it's I realized because as I was uploading it to Bandcamp, I listened through all the songs again, and I'm just listening, and I'm listening to my own songs, but I hadn't listened to them for months. I haven't even thought about them for months. And I caught myself going like, oh, I forgot I wrote that. That's so cool. And you know that when you do that and your music impresses you, like that's the only person that I write music for, me. Yeah. So, damn. Yeah. I want to give this album a 10. Like, like a mild to medium 10. Like,
yeah. No.
Yeah. So I guess it's just one of those things that you should love your own music. There's nothing vain about loving your own music. You should be writing it for you. And so it's I guess chiptune pop punk album. It's Nintendo Entertainment System, bass, drums, guitars, vocals, everything played by me, everything written by me. Oh, actually, no. Toby, you sang a couple of lines.
I sang one line.
Yeah.
Cat show.
And it's great. It's the best line. It's the best line of the bunch.
No, that's the most overproduced song on the track.
Yeah. I think it's my favorite one. It's my favorite one. I keep coming back to it.
It's a good tune. No, but it's definitely good to have something come out that you've worked hard for, and like especially this after this year and everything that's happened. It's good. It's good to see you back, to be honest.
It's good to see you too, homie.
Oh shucks. I'm glad you're back, and I hope everyone else will like the album when it comes out. Probably by the time this episode comes out, it'll be out already, so pop over to the Tuberz
Make sure you like and subscribe.
There'll be a link in the description. Check it out. Tuberz Mcgee. Spell that. How do you spell it, my dude?
TUBERZMCGEE.bandcamp.com.
Check it out, peoples. But I think that's where we'll leave it. It's been a fucking blast having you on, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been really, really fun.
I appreciate it. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Jane.